Hi guys, how you doing? So today I'm going to take a short look at an article that discusses the end of the Great Indian Marriage, and the rest is going to be my thoughts on marriage and adultery based on what I've read and understood over time. The writer, obviously female and I'm guessing a feminist as most Indian women are, starts off with "The Great Indian Marriage is dead. The carcasses are still lying around the urban landscape and have not been cleared yet. Nobody has a clue what to do about the death of this mighty institution, but the beast that has replaced it has driven fear into the heart of the Indian man." Fear at the heart of the Indian man. Sure. She hasn't the slightest idea as to how wrong she is. Men are waking up to the evils of women, if anything. I am obviously going to skip a lot of the article because it's too fucking long and I have other things to talk about. So, and plus, yes, I don't want to waste your time on it either. I've left a link in the description so you can have a read of the article if you so wish. Anyway, she goes on. But the Indian man may not become completely redundant if he decides to break through the paradigms that he is familiar with. He too can be a part of the new world order, if he manages to evolve fast enough, that is. This will be as difficult as learning a new language after the age of 35. It basically means he will have to go against his conditioning. First, he will have to lose his sense of entitlement. This is probably the hardest step. The Indian man is born with a great sense of entitlement. It is in his DNA, and it is the primary reason why he is in this pathetic state. Here's another thing she doesn't understand about men. Men have adjusted through centuries appeasing your greedy demands. The washing machine, numerous birth control methods, and delivery options to ease your pain, or to give you the choice of not having a child at all. Men have bowed down to female needs for most of history because no matter what, there will always be blue pill men. She also got the whole entitlement thing completely fucking backwards. I mean, I have a vagina. I get whatever I want. I need special laws to protect me because vagina. I'm a strong, independent woman who needs affirmative action. That's entitlement and hypocrisy in its best form. She goes on about how men should start policing women in bed and all the usual male bashing, and she ends with, "Some men have already understood this new version of the Indian marriage and have seamlessly moved into this operating system, but most men are struggling and they don't have a clue about what's going on. The Indian wife can be kind and nurturing, but in her new empowered avatar, she can be ruthless when she's unhappy. And if you can't make her happy, she will throw you on the bus headed for divorce land. I feel quite sorry for the Indian man, but he had it coming and he had a long time to be prepared." She wrote a long bloody article, but still failed to point out the glaring problems that are destroying the Indian marriage as of now. One out of them is definitely the biased laws and the rise of feminism. More than 600,000 cases in the last 6 years. I will not deny that there are men who are cruel, but that's the minority. The number of confirmed fake cases in India is probably more than the convictions. She has pity for the Indian man, but that's because she thinks men need marriage. But little does she know that men do not really need women, other than for their reproductive system and obviously sex. Men at the moment have nothing to gain from marriage. Absolutely nothing, and I'll explain to you why. Now, the economic theory behind marriage put forward by Gary S. Becker is that two simple principles form the heart of the analysis. The first is that since marriage is practically always voluntary, either by the persons marrying or their parents, the theory of preferences can be readily applied, and persons marrying can be assumed to expect to raise their utility level above what it would be were they to remain single. The second is that since many men and women compete as they seek mates, a market in marriages can be presumed to exist. Each person tries to find the best mate, subject to the restrictions imposed by the market conditions, as in their market value. Now, he starts off with the premise that marriage occurs only if both of them increase their utility. Now, I'm going to borrow quite a bit from the blog No Ma'am and also touch on what Karen Strawn has previously mentioned in her videos. Analyzing males and females, we can come to a conclusion that males and females have a shortage and a surplus. Females have a surplus of reproductive ability, but a shortage of labor, while males have a shortage of reproductive ability, but a surplus of labor. In the economic contract of marriage, the male sells his surplus of labor in exchange for her reproductive ability, and the female sells her reproductive ability for the surplus labor. Technically, the man only owns her reproductive ability and not her in this legal contract. The children in the marriage are the children of the father, as he has paid for the productivity. But with the tender years doctrine that transferred default custody to the mother, the contract of marriage is a fraudulent contract. The man pays for the reproductive ability of his wife, but when she leaves, she takes what she was originally supposed to have sold to him, the product of her reproductive ability, the children. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, her body, her choice, it indeed is. Now, she has not been forced into marriage. She chose to do it herself. If she did not want the surplus labor, she could have shagged some guy, got pregnant, and kept the child. But a single mother with a child is bringing the child into the world under an enormous disadvantage if she and the child were not coupled with the labor of the father. Now, what I stated first was, of course, the original marriage contract and not the current tainted and fraudulent one. Even now, though women have children outside of marriage, they still need the surplus labor which is enforced by the government named child support. I'm sorry, but single mothers are not independent or strong if they force a man to pay child support. Since marriages are not a necessity to procure the surplus labor, and with the social stigma of single motherhood fading at faster pace than the Flash himself, we in India will see the day when it's widely prevalent as in a few Western countries. We're on the same path they are, only a decade or two behind. Of course, due to globalization, it'll occur at a faster pace than expected. If you want to see the future of India and marriage, look at the state of marriages in the Western countries. It's that easy. If child support is readily available to the woman, it also begs the question, why would women marry now? Why would they marry if they could simply give birth and get the surplus labor transferred to them by the state from the father? Now, as to most answers regarding female nature, hypergamy seems to answer the question best. Females do it to increase their market value, and she loses nothing from the marriage. The contract is heavily skewed in her favor. Women almost never marry a man whose status and wealth is below the woman. If she marries a man, she buys his labor without having to sell her productivity. It is literally buying something for free. His finances are hers, and his status is also hers. She can use it as she pleases. And as previously mentioned, men have nothing to gain from marriage because any child during marriage is hers, and his surplus labor is hers too, even if she divorces through alimony and child support payments in the event of a pregnancy during marriage. The current marriage system can be best explained by loans that we take out to buy a house. The house, the result of a reproductive system, a child. The bank, the woman, and the payment for the loan being a man's surplus labor. We buy the house and pay the loans as specified in the contract, but after a few years, the bank decides it's done with the man and repossesses the house. However, the man still has to pay the monthly payments as per the contract. This would be a contract no man would ever sign if it was presented to them, but men are lining up to sign the marriage contract. The marriage contract is a scam. Is that not what a sane person would call it if it was a contract for a house loan? What makes it different? Sex. Sex and prostitution will be discussed in one of my coming videos because there's a lot I want to talk about it. I'm going to talk about something else today. Now, during marriage, there also comes the question of adultery. Again, this is not as uncommon as people believe it to be. Now, why would women commit adultery if they already have someone who's of higher economic and social status than they are? Now, I had stated why women commit adultery in one of my previous videos, but did not tell you the reason I came to that conclusion. For that, I will point you to the study conducted by Burkhead and Moller on swallows. They studied swallows because they have a similar social structure to humans. A female swallow needs a husband who will help look after her young, but by the time she arrives at the breeding site, she might find all the best husbands taken. Her best tactic is therefore to mate with a mediocre husband or a husband with a good nest site and have an affair with a genetically superior neighbor. This is also supported by the fact that females in human species choose more dominant, older, or more attractive lovers than their husbands. She might be doing this consciously or unconsciously, but she does it nevertheless. When we look at the laws in place, which I discussed in the previous video for legitimacy of the child in India, this little bit makes perfect sense. A child born during marriage is the legal responsibility of the husband. The woman gets the man to build her nest and gets the greater genes as well. It's a win-win. Another interesting result to come out of the birth studies is that attractive males make inattentive fathers. Now, this was first noticed by Anders Moller. When a female mates with an attractive male, he works less hard and she works harder at bringing up the young. He hypothesizes that it could be because the male thinks he has done her a big favor just by giving her his genes. This again increases her incentive to find a mediocre but hard-working husband and cuckold him by having an affair with a super stud next door. The female is having a cake and eating it too. This is of course not to say that men do not cheat on their wives. Men do as much as women, but to elaborate on it, if we take two couples A and B, if husband A has an affair with wife B, he is sowing his wild oats. What he gets is a possibility to pass on his genes at the cost of another man. Husband B will be spending his resources on a child that is not his, and this will reduce the chance of passing on his genes, especially if he's not aware of the fact that the child is not his, and if he thinks that one child is enough. Now, either of the wives, whatever they do, will not have to raise someone else's child because she has complete maternal assurance. At the same time, husband A, who had the affair, has only sent off some of his genes, and it does not cost the wife any harm other than emotional. No matter how you look at it, whoever commits adultery, other than the emotional pain, because it happens either way, men are the only ones that stand to lose. What I am saying is men have been screwing other men over throughout history. Women, on the other hand, sit by their side and grab some popcorn to enjoy the show. Yes, of course. Okay, this video could go on for hours because a lot of it is directly linked with other things I want to talk about, like prostitution, sex. So as I mentioned before, I will pick up and continue this video another time. If you guys have anything to say, please comment below. And as always, if you like what you're hearing, hit the damn subscribe button. Cheers, guys.